God places a threshold of love before us.
We give thanks for all those who have traveled the path ahead of us.
God speaks through our deepest desires, embedded deep within our souls.
To be known, to be loved, to be alive fully and uniquely.
God beckons us into the ever forward, ever back movement of justice.
We come to gather courage and to prepare ourselves to offer the grace we have received to our hurting, isolated siblings.
God's glory reveals itself to us.
Through each and every joyous, mysterious expression of self.
Come, let us worship together. Can you help me? We light today's peace candle in observance of National Coming Out Day, observed this past Tuesday. We give thanks for our LGBTQIA siblings who have courageously stepped into their full and authentic selves through the claiming of gender and sexual identities. And we stand in solidarity with those who live under the threat of or suffer actual violence because of those identities. May we continue to testify to our God's truth that love is never illegal. And let us continue in worship by praying together the prayer that Jesus taught us. Tender, loving God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Good morning, friends. Good morning. It is good to be here with you all today on this lovely fall day at Plymouth Church in Minneapolis. My name is Seth Patterson, and I am one of your clergy here, and it is an absolute joy to be in this space with you. Wherever you have been, wherever you're going, whoever you are right now, you are welcome in this place. And we hope that you feel the love of God and community, and may we all be the ones to help make that happen. A few announcements. If you listen better because your hands are busy, of any age, outside this door there is a basket of things to color with and to read. You won't hurt our feelings if you're busy while you're listening, I promise. If you are new today, if this is your first time here or your 500,000th time, you are welcome, and we hope that you find others to talk to and to meet and help build the community, the beloved community here. Every Sunday, almost every Sunday at 10 o'clock, between our 9 o'clock service and our 11, at 10 o'clock, we do a handful of things. Next week, our forum, which is in the chapel, is called Rebuild Ukraine, and it's an organization that is working to rebuild Ukraine. And it's a clever name, right? And it is necessary, and I hope that we can be there to support and listen to their work. Dr. Paul Gavrilyuk, who is the Aquinas Chair in Theology and Philosophy at the University of St. Thomas, will be presenting. In our gallery, as always, there is a small group discussion time, and this is a chance for us to practice listening to each other and speaking and getting to know each other in new ways. In the fireside room, we have an open meditation space. The library and the archives are open and often have volunteers there to help walk you through and answer questions. And as always, church school is in the education wing. And if you don't want to do any of those, there is coffee in Jones Commons, and there will be other people to talk to. So please come next week at 10. And especially next week at 10, we get to say thank you to our friend Mary Welfling, who has been leading our archives for, I don't even know how long, for longer than I can imagine. And next week, she has decided to retire and pass this off to other people, and we get to say thank you. So come next week at 10 o'clock in Jones Commons and say thank you to Mary Welfling and eat the cake that is in honor of her. All that we can imagine is only possible because of your generosity. It's only possible because you're here and you help make it happen. As you might notice, we are still not collecting offering at this time, but we do hope that you are able to give. We have metal boxes, one here and one by Jones Commons, where you can drop a check or cash, or you can give online. If you pull out your phone and to give online, again, you won't hurt our feelings. Please support us in that way. And in a moment, we'll hear a little bit more about our annual giving campaign. A few thank yous. Thank you to Chris Bonhoff, who is employed here, is a member here, is employed here as our digital ministry specialist, but also, you might not know, is a student at United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. And so it is a gift for us that he can use his voice and practice being in spaces like this and help us today. So thank you, Chris, for all that you give. It is also a great pleasure to welcome once again Tony Ross to Plymouth Church. He's up there now, which you'll know why in a few minutes, and I am so excited about that. Since 1991, Tony has been the principal cellist of the Minnesota Orchestra, as well as appearing in music festivals from coast to coast. And in a moment, we will hear John Tavener's anthem that places the cello in the balcony as the cantor with the Plymouth Choir in the loft as the congregants. It'll be really very lovely. Thank you, Tony, for your continued presence and gifts to us. I invite Jay Maitre up now, Jay, as he's walking up, is our moderator right now and a member of our deacons, and so represents the church's interests and your interest in the church. And he is going to tell us some about this annual giving campaign. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Seth. Good morning, everyone. As Seth mentioned, I'm here to talk about our annual giving campaign and ask for your participation, your enthusiastic participation. We have a wonderful, vibrant community here at Plymouth, and that takes a lot of everything. It takes a lot of gifts from our community members. So we, of course, want to have everyone participate with their time and their talent and their treasure. All three are very important, but the annual giving campaign is really about our treasure. And we have a lot of new programs in the works. We have a new director of spiritual formation that we are adding to the staff this year. And we are essentially, we need to grow our donations by about 10% this year. And so we ask, please participate. And we love your time and we love your talent. Please come and be a part of the community that way, but also open your pocketbooks and bring your treasure as well to help continue doing the wonderful things that we are doing here at Plymouth. There will be pledge cards coming out in the mail, I believe this week, so look for those. And we have a website already up. It's plymouth.org/give, really easy to remember, and of course, the metal boxes at the entrances. And if you have any questions or would like to talk more about what's happening in our vibrant community, please reach out. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. feel like I'm interrupting something. That was extraordinary. Often after something like that, I would get up here and complain about how unfair it is that I have to try to speak after something like that. And while that's still kind of true, it fits. And I'm grateful for the lead-in. What an amazing amount of imaginations went into creating that. And where did your mind go? What did you imagine while that was happening? Our reading today is from the book of Job, chapter 11. It's quite short. Can you fathom the mysteries of God? Can you probe the limits of the Almighty? They are higher than the heavens above. What can you do? They are deeper than the depths below. What can you know? Their measure is longer than the earth and wider than the sea. Please take a deep breath with me. May we open our eyes, our ears, our hearts, and our minds to these words from our spiritual ancestors. May we take them, learn from them, hold them, and see what happens. Amen. Human beings are stuck. Human beings are stuck. Even after a few 100,000 years of being anatomically modern humans, we still find ourselves unsure of our place in this world. Are we part of the world? Or do we have control of the world? Or both? Or neither? Human beings seem to be stuck in that tension of being and being more than at the same time. Even after layered and multiple revolutions of tool-making and art, religion and culture, industry and war, peace and technology, we still may not know who we are. We may think we know our place when we look at our lives in the micro, in the day-to-day experiences that we create for ourselves, but when we step back, when we look at the whole in the macro, do we know who we are? We are animals, mammals like a cat or an elephant, a dolphin or a chimpanzee, but are we like them? Do you and your dog cohabitate as equals? And if you do, tell me how that works. So if we are both like an animal and yet different from, where does that put us? Who are we then? Are we set apart from the rest of the living things? Are we different than? Are we closer to God? We are capable of creating like God. We can begin to understand and unravel the deep mysteries and complexities of the universe. We can cause destruction on a massive scale and alter the face of the earth to fit our desires. Humans alone have eliminated and caused the extinction of 680 vertebrates in the last 400 years alone. This is Hebrew Bible level destruction that we have caused. So, are we animal-like or are we God-like? Yes and no. We are both, and we are neither. We are animal in that we are born and we grow, we require food and shelter and care, we get sick, we experience death. We are biological creatures like all other living things, and we are capable of that which no other living thing is capable. We are stuck in this tension, in this liminal space between biological and divine proximity. The 20th century theologian Reinhold Niebuhr put it this way: human existence is obviously distinguished from animal life by its qualified participation in creation. Within limits, it breaks the forms of nature and creates new configurations of vitality. This double belonging that we find ourselves in can be complicated. Any paradox or tension comes with some amount of stress, and my hope today is to not alleviate that tension. Sorry. In fact, I wonder if that tension born of mystery is actually a good thing for us to remember as we make decisions and as we build relationships. We are both animal and more than animal. So how does remembering that change the way that we consume, the way we build or tear down, the ways that we care for or don't care for each other? So I wonder if this small passage from the Hebrew Bible book of Job can remind us of something that is central to this human tension of being both created and able to create. And that is our imagination. Human beings are, as far as we know, the only biological creature that have the capacity to imagine, the capacity to conceive of what has not yet existed. This is central to our ability to create, to be creative, to understand and expand knowledge. Imagination is the jumping off point of the building of anything new, be it physical or conceptual. Imagination is also foundational to the way that we speak and have language and understand each other. Congregational minister Henry Ward Beecher once wrote, "The soul without imagination is what an observatory would be without a telescope." To even understand that analogy, we need our imaginations. So Job's friend asks him, "Can you fathom the mysteries of God? Can you probe the limits of the Almighty? How big is your imagination?" he wonders. Is your imagination as big as God, as expansive as the very ground of being? Only our imaginations can even engage these questions. Only our imaginations can bring us to the edges of our understanding and then go further. Only our imaginations can fathom that which we do not yet know or have not yet experienced. This imagination is a gift that humans alone possess in our biological world. It's what separates us from the rest of our partners on earth, and it is what makes us sometimes forget that we aren't godlike. This gift, and like all gifts, it can also be a curse, is one thing that makes humans human and forces us into that tension between heaven and earth. When Job was first written, likely in the 6th century before the Common Era, about 2,700 years ago, the second set of questions asked here would have seemed way beyond possibility. They are deeper than the depths below. Their measure is longer than the earth and wider than the sea. Those questions were so far beyond the limits of knowledge then. But now I can tell you that the average depth of the sea is 12,100 feet. And the deepest part is 35,876 feet deep. The circumference of the earth is 24,902 miles. What was once beyond the scope of knowledge, beyond imagination, can now be known because of our imagination. In the last few millennia, since the book of Job was written, our imaginations have pushed beyond the limits of our knowledge, and then knowledge continued to catch up. We are only able to create that which we first imagine. As the playwright George Bernard Shaw said, imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will what you imagine, and at last you create what you will. What we imagine has the potential to become realized. And we all here and everywhere are the beneficiaries of our ancestors' imaginations. So much goodness and health and safety and art and music are the product of generations of imagination turned to creation. Somebody had to imagine the thing that we now call a cello. They had to imagine a thing we call the organ. They had to imagine what it meant to sing together, and then somebody imagined and wrote it, and then they all imagined and put it together. So many layers. And we are also carrying the burden of our predecessors' imaginations. So much oppression and cruelty and destruction has come about because of the ways that humans have imagined controlling other humans and holding power and taking from. So, like humanity, imagination is not an absolute moral good. It is powerful, and it can be used for good or for harm. And this place, this community, this congregation is also the beneficiary of generations of imaginations that have created this church, and we have now inherited it, and we are now the stewards of it. We are able to eat the fruits that have been given to us, and we have to decide what no longer works. And we have the opportunity, the obligation, to be the imaginative ancestors that our descendants need us to be. We are called to live into the gift of our humanness and imagine a better world to give to our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. To imagine and then work to create. So what can you imagine? What can you imagine? What could you imagine that could create the goodness that our communities, that our world needs? What can you imagine that might begin to undo so much of the brokenness that we have been handed? What can you imagine? And then how do you stop yourself from discarding your imaginations? When have you imagined something and then told yourself that it's probably impossible and to forget about it? What stories do you tell yourself that unfortunately convince you that your imagination is not worthy? It seems to be a cultural condition of ours that we diminish imagination, or at least segment it off to being the responsibility of children and artists. We sometimes act as if imagination is false, or pretend, or useless. We choose to devote ourselves to the pragmatic and the measurable, as if all that is worthwhile is only what we already have. Science is no exception to the gifts of imagination. Nothing new can be discovered without the imagination to spur the exploration. Astronomer Carl Sagan speaks to this when he says, "Imagination will often carry us to worlds that never were, but without it, we go nowhere." So I ask us to reconceive imagination, to alter it the way it sits in our lives. Instead of being flimsy, imagination is bold. Imagination takes bravery. Imagination takes some work and practice and knowledge. To imagine something new is to take all that we have been given, all of our God-given human gifts, and put them into the creation of something that has not yet been. Our imagination can be used to be co-creators with God, with the intention of building the beloved community that God calls us to build. This is not for other people to do. This is for you. This is for us. You are capable. We are capable. We are all equipped with imagination. It's what makes you not a dolphin. It's what makes us human. It's one of our God-given gifts that puts us into that tension we named before. Imagination is what differentiates us from the rest of biological life. Why wouldn't we use this gift? To imagine doesn't mean that everything will just happen. We still need to do the work to make everyone in our communities experience the unending love that God promises us all. We still need to do the work of breaking down the oppressive systems that still cage all of us in some way or another. We still need to solve a whole lot of practical problems, but imagination is where it begins. Imagination can be exciting and playful and hopeful. Nothing can be created if it's not imagined first. So what can you imagine? What can we imagine together? How can we be bold and brave and imagined for a hoped-for future? And how can we all together encourage each other so that this church, this community, can be fertile soil for all these imaginations? You have a place to put them. You have a place to try them out. God is found within every single one of us and connected, and the connecting sinew between us all. We are both finite biological creatures and have the gifts of God. And in that important and life-giving tension, in that space of hope and possibility of what could be, what can you imagine? What can you imagine? What can we imagine? And then go forth and do it. And we'll do it together. May it be so.
Will you join me in a spirit of prayer? God of the infinite, from our small resting place here on an improbably hospitable ball of rock, we marvel at your creation. We receive the gifts of physicists' manifest imaginations, revealing the vastness of creation, the beauty, the depths of its mystery. In this season of harvest and transition, O God, we see our leafy cousins bursting with their own beauty, gasping their colorful, fleeting praise against the clear blue October sky. The beauty made more poignant by the recognition of the relationship between autumn vibrancy and its relationship to winter, to the cycle of birth, death, and resurrection. Within these church spaces, Holy One, we give praise for the birth of this new church year and for your Spirit's work within and among us. Voices new and established mingle in the halls and virtual spaces conjured by your church, and we marvel at the shoots of new life, the new pathways to your beloved community revealed through our collective gifts. God of joy, God of mystery, God of community, we give thanks for the seeds of love that you sow into the ground of our being. May we nurture those seeds, our own and those within each being we meet, by celebrating the beauty of creation's gifts in all its forms, whether human, plant, or cosmic. And through that perception of beauty, may we be renewed for the challenge of seeing the less obvious beauty, nonetheless present in creation's less lovable corners. Holy One, the nurture of your love is in our hands. Strengthen us, love us as we embrace this mystery as your faithful people.
Friends, go forth from this place into your many lives and communities, carrying all that you carry, being all that you are, and use your imagination to build anew, for we get to be the ancestors our descendants need us to be. And we can do that together, and as a reminder of that togetherness, we read together our covenant benediction. We covenant with you, O God, and one with another, and do bind ourselves in your presence to walk together in all your ways, according as you are pleased to reveal yourself to us in your blessed word of truth.